Hello there and a very good afternoon to all the students. Hope you are doing well. Let's quickly get started with part 1 of Spring framework, right? Yesterday's video was introduction, and today we are going to start with the Spring framework, and I'm going to give you the recap of what we achieved yesterday. And before we move ahead, I would like to say that the Spring framework that we are going to learn is going to be the prerequisite for Spring Boot. Because to get started with Spring Boot, we require some basic knowledge of Spring Framework and dependency injection. So I've just given rough about dependency injection. So let's get quickly started with NetBeans here. So we are using NetBeans 8.2 and quickly get started. I'll go with new project, web application. Let's call this DI, which is dependency injection SPRING. So this is what DI Spring, our project name. Let's quickly click next, and now we have to add Spring Web MVC. Include GSTL if you want to include, so that's not a problem. So then I'll click finish. All right, and now we have two different files that I gave you, introduction about, or maybe the description of all those files. We have application context, we have dispatcher servlet, we have web.xml file, and we have many different files. Okay, so let's have the recap, and before I have the recap, let's quickly start the application so that the application is deployed till the time I tell you about. So now the first thing that the Apache server or any web server that you are using, maybe Glassfish, JBoss, will check is that your web.xml file, and now you can clearly see right, that the welcome file is redirect.jsp. If we go to redirect.jsp is doing nothing but sending the redirect to index.htm. Right, and what this is index.htm is, it's basically inside JSP with an extension of JSP, right? So JSP folder is inside web.inf. Now in Spring, if you get this question, because my duty is to prepare you for exams and interviews as well, so if you get the question, where does a JSP folder reside and what is the location of JSP folder in Spring? Now if we are making Spring Web MVC based web applications, in that case Spring is going to be inside, JSP is going to be inside web pages, and inside web pages we have the directory web.inf, and inside web.inf all the JSPs are going to reside in this JSP. So we call that as view. Right, so they're going to be our views. So JSP, but you can see clearly here that it has JSP index, which is resolved in dispatcher servlet and application context. You'll understand in next 2 to 3 lectures, right? And let us go back to web.xml, and now this file is doing nothing but redirecting you to index.htm. And now anything, right, any URL with .htm extension is going to use the dispatcher servlet. You can clearly see URL pattern of star.html. Star means anything that has an extension of HTML is going to be redirected to dispatcher, and dispatcher is going to take help from the Spring framework. Just like struts, you are dispatching every request to struts framework. Here we are dispatching every request to the dispatcher servlet, and dispatcher servlet is forwarding it to, we call them as intercept. So now you're intercepting the request, and any request which is as that of HTML extension will be forwarded to the dispatcher servlet, which will in turn take help from this dispatcher servlet class, which is that you are forwarding all the requests to the dispatcher servlet right here. So you can say your dispatcher servlet is right here. If you go and open your dispatcher servlet, and this is where all the requests and are going to be forwarded, and this is where you are going to generate response. For example, we're generating response for index controller right here. So that we are going to understand into our 3 classes. But before we start with anything more, we have to understand the basic concept, right? So to understand the basic concept, I'll just get rid of everything here. I told you the dependency injection, we have to understand that, right? So now to understand the dependency injection, first run the file. Okay, now we are at index.htm. So this is our index.htm, and now we are going to learn dependency injection. And for that, the first things first, we'll go ahead and create a new Spring XML configuration file. If you cannot find it here, you can find it here. So I'll go with Spring XML configuration file and call this as spring.xml. So let's call this SPRING, spring.xml, right? And these are the things that you may include, but we may not require them. And it's a very simple, it's a very simple container class, right? Spring.xml, which will take our configurations, and we'll call this class, we'll call this XML and we'll seek all, or we'll ask for all the objects that we may require for developing any applications, right? For developing any module of the application, right? So this Spring.xml file is highly required for creating, for giving us objects, right? So for example, I give you an example of triangle. Right, in the previous class I gave you that example of triangle and many different things, right? So let's carry on with that as well today. So for example, if I carry on and I make a new Java class and I call this circle, and since now I know, right, that circle has one method which is known as draw. Alright, so let's create this method, and the method is going to be of type string, right, and it's going to be draw. Right, it's a simple test for dependency injection. I'll say return because the return type of the function is string, so I'll return circle drawn. Right, first we have to get rid of the object creation. Using the new keyword again and again is what is basically supposed to be the problem with the majority of or major developers. They face this problem in developing complex applications, right? Because our duty is to start with the basic application and go till the complex application, MVC based complex application design. So now what is Spring? Spring is not following MVC pattern only. Spring is a complete MVC framework. The definition of framework is, as you know, framework provides foundation, right, classes and libraries, right? So framework provides foundation, classes and libraries that we inherit or extend from. Why do we use framework? So that the amount of code that we usually write is minimized, right? And what is Spring? It is an MVC framework, right? Not MVC pattern that we create model fold, we create packages like model, view and controller. No, not that. It is a complete framework, right? Which of course follows MVC pattern as well. Right, so now what we have done so far, we created a class circle and we have created a function draw, which is of type string. Now what we can do, we can create a reference of the class, which is a bean tag. I'll say bean, all right, and I'll give this bean an ID. So a bean ID is equivalent to, it's as simple as anything. So I call this as TRIA, or you can say circle. So the bean ID is circle, and let me take it in different package because you have to take it in different package. And Spring.xml, I'll keep it in default package. I repeat, take Spring.xml in default package, right? And what I will do right here, I will create a new Java package and call this as, let's say, beans. Just to check, it's just testing happening right at this moment in time. And beans will take my circle, right? So now what we have so far, we have a new project known as DI Spring. DI stands for Dependency Injection. It's just the name. Name can be anything. And we have understood that web pages may reside inside JSP folder. With JSP folders, parent directory is web.inf, and the parent directory of web.inf is itself web pages, right? So far this is understood. Second thing, we understood that every request with an .htm extension is going to be redirected to the dispatcher servlet using the dispatcher name here, right? So using the servlet interception, right? So we have the servlet name and we have mapping. Anything with .htm will be redirected to dispatcher servlet, which is this servlet. And we'll understand the operation of dispatcher servlet in the concurrent classes also. Second thing we learned, third, that the welcome file is redirect.jsp, which does nothing. Redirects our request back to this index.jsp, which is basically index.htm. So you'll understand that how is that JSP extension changed to HTML extension. We call that as a routing. How is routing happening? You'll understand that as well. And after that, what we did, we created a Spring.xml file inside default package, and we created another package known as beans, which has a method known as which has a class known as circle and a method known as draw. Now what we are doing in Spring.xml, we are creating a reference, okay, and we can say class, I'll say class is equivalent to beans dot circle. So that's it. So now my bean is done, right? Okay, fine. So since now the bean is done, I can go back to my index.jsp and seek object of the class from this bean. So for example, if I go right here and open scriptlets just to test, right? So this is not what we do in Spring, but yeah, unless you guys have to understand it first, so that's why I'm doing it, just to make you guys understand. So I can call bean factory. So it's called bean factory and make an object of bean factory. So I can say factory bean factory is equivalent to, okay, new XML bean factory, which is depreciated because it is being replaced with application context as you saw in the previous clause. So I'll say is equivalent to new file system resource, right? And file system resource takes one parameter, which is the name of the Spring file. So I'll show you like this, okay? So it is better. So bean factory is equal to new XML bean factory, takes one parameter, which is the instance of file system resource, and the file system resource is the name of Spring XML file that we have created. I'll call this as Spring.xml, right? So since we have created the Spring.xml now, right, you can clearly see that we have created a reference to Spring.xml. And now what I will do, I have to do nothing. Now the part is done. I can simply say factory. I'll call the object of factory and I can say give me a bean. That's it. Factory dot get bean, and the name of the bean is circle that we have just created. So let me see this here. Sorry. Okay, now you can see the bean is circle, which is a reference to bean, the package beans. Inside that we have that class circle, right? So that's why we are calling this circle, right? Factory.get bean circle. So now, because the type of the circle is class, right, and we are getting it as bean, so what we need to do is typecast it. So I can say circle. I'm filling the object here, so I can say circle C is equivalent to factory.get bean. So I'll have to import it. Circle is inside beans, right? So now we can see there's a problem. Incompatibility. Object cannot be converted to circle. So in case we need to convert an object, which is this factory bean object, right, back to circle, we have to typecast it. And how do we typecast? We typecast like this, circle. Right, so now this is how we typecast it. Now you can say out dot print c dot, what is the method? Draw. Now because the draw method is return type is of type string, we can directly do out of println of that method. Now we have an exception right here, right? That file not found, Spring.xml is not found. So let me see that. Spring, is it small or capital? Spring.xml, let me rename it. Okay, and paste it. So is equivalent to new is equivalent to XML, new XML bean factory, new file system resource, which is Spring.xml. Alright, so why isn't it found? Alright, so it is creating a problem right here again. Java.file not found exception. The system cannot find the file specified, which is Spring.xml is not found. Alright, so where is that Spring.xml? It is directly in default package, right? If I take it in JSP, let me see if I take directly in JSP, yeah, we get 404. Okay, it's still not found. Yeah, I have to move back to default package. Circle goes to default package beans, and our Spring.xml is in JSP. I'll directly keep it in web pages rather than keeping it JSP. Now let's see. Save and run. No, it's still not working. Can keep it in web.inf and see whether it works. Okay, it's getting compiled. Yeah, still it's not working. Exception parsing. Spring.xml is not found. Why isn't it found? If I take it to source packages and in default package, it should be able to find. Let me take help from ApplicationContext as we did yesterday, right? Because it's depreciated, so we can directly go to application So I can say application. All right, so you can ask application context. So I can say application context is equivalent to new class path. So we can say is equivalent to new class path, right, XML application context. Okay, application context is equal to new class path XML application context, and we are going to give the address of the application context file, that is spring.xml. Alright, so this is now spring.xml is equivalent to new class path. Okay, application context is imported is equivalent to new class path application context, which is spring.xml. Let me save it and see how it works. Okay, it should not generate any error in here, but still, because it's not able to find spring.xml, I don't know why, but we still have to see. So let me save it. Application context is equivalent to, maybe we'll have to keep it in a single line, class path application context, which is Spring XML context. Let me see that if I save it. At times error goes after saving it. Alright, Spring.xml has to be here. Application application. Let me use, maybe we have installed application context, and okay, we have installed a wrong package, org.jboss application context, right? So that happens at times. So we'll have to go with Spring Framework application context. So that is where the error is. So let me see this. Okay, so it's not JBoss, right? We have to go for Spring org.spring framework package here. Now you can see the moment you change the package, error is gone, right? So this is package error. It happens at times because there are many packages available in Java. So it's better that we are getting this error so that you're becoming aware of, how to solve and debug. Because at times calling a wrong package, you may say that everything is fine, everything that I have written is also fine, right? And what has happened is, okay, now the Spring file is found, all right, and that might have been the reason with the Bean factory as well. So let me do it again. So I can say context dot get bean. So it's again context dot get bean, CIRCLE, circle. So I'm asking for the circle bean. Yeah, absolutely fine, no error. And I can say circle is equivalent to context.getBean because the class is of type circle. So I can call this circle class right here, and I can say circle C is equal to context.getBean. Typecasting is required because once you're calling context.getBean, it returns object, right? As object type is bean. So now we have to convert it back to class because we are giving it back to class. So that is the circle. Now then everything is done. Okay, so let us see. Okay, we are not getting any errors. We can say now out.print and c.draw is the function name. So we should get circle drawn. Now we're getting circle drawn. So this is application context. So let me take a look at Bean factory. What happened to Bean factory? Bean factory is actually Spring Framework Bean factory. Everything is right about Bean factory. I don't know what is wrong here. Why didn't we? We were not able to use Bean factory, but still we don't have to use because it's depreciated. It's out of syllabus now. Bean factory. You can see that the moment I call Bean factory, I'll say well, let's call this context. This context is equivalent to, right? So Bean factory is equal to new XML. The moment I call this XML, you can clearly see XML, right? So you can see XML Bean factory is depreciated. If I pass my mouse over, right? So let me first complete it and then show you, right? So okay, let me show you this new file system resource, which is going to be our file name, and the file name is spring spring.xml. So now what is happening here, as you can clearly see that this XML bean factory object, if I pass my mouse over this, right, you can clearly see the dash coming, right? So it means it is depreciated. Okay, depreciated means it is not going to be used in the future. You better change it, right? So now you can see that you're not able to find it, right? Spring.xml with the this bean factory, right? So we'll have to close it down. So since we're not interested in using bean factory, we're more interested in using application context for calling the spring.xml. Now we call application context and we get circle drawn. Now you can see that one of the best things that you have to notice here, that circle draws a method which is c.draw without even using the new keyword for calling circle. Now you can see we are doing context.getBean. So for example, if we are having 100 objects, 200 classes, 10 classes, 5 classes, so all the objects are going to be given by spring.xml. So we are just saying get the bean circle, typecast it, right? And you can see this is the first dependency injection that we have applied. Okay, now we can see that there are many different injections that we'll have to be aware of. So now we'll have to first understand what is a Pojo, right? Let's say we have a class. Now I'll go to beans. I'll make another class right here and I call this class as employee. So the class name is employee and it has to be, a bean has to be a Pojo. Pojo stands for plain old Java object. So bean has to be a Pojo and Pojo has to have the following things. For example, if I say we have int eid, which is employee ID, and we can go with another thing, int ename, which is employee name. Sorry, how is employee name going to be int? Look what I do. And string address is going to be employee address. So for the sake, let's create a constructor. A Pojo should always have a zero parameter constructor, that is public employee. We're creating a zero parameter constructor and a parameterized constructor. So if I go with constructor and I take 3 parameters, so now this is called as plain old Java object, and now maybe getters and setters are also required, right? So I'll write the definition of this also, plain old Java object. Now I'll create getters and setters. So now we have created getters and setters here, right? So now we have employee object, plain old Java object should have, right, 1, right, 0 argument constructor, right, 2, right, a constructor with we can say constructor overloaded, right, with arguments, so few arguments that your constructor applies, and the Pojo should have getters and setters. This is the requirement for creating a Pojo, a zero parameter constructor that we have created, and a parameterized constructor. When I call this constructor, I'll have to apply EID, which is employee ID, employee name, and employee address. And so far, it's going good, right? So this is Pojo. Now that we have made Pojo successfully, now we can go to this bean, which is the spring.xml configuration file, and I can create properties. Now the first thing is the getter and setter injection. So this is going to be getter injection, setter injection. So I'll say property, and now I'll not say bean only because I have to use properties of beans here, right? So now my bean does not have, if I go back here, bean had only a method. So this is called method injection. Now my bean has properties, right? EID, ename, eAddress, so it has many properties. So we're going to apply now injection on properties here, right? Okay, let's call this and say bean ID is equal to EMP, right, 1. So let's call this employee 1. ID can be anything that you can remember. Class is equal to beans dot employee, so not eans but beans, right? You need to be patient while doing programming, you know that, right? Alright, so now this time I'm not self-closing the bean tag, I'm separately closing the bean tag. Now the difference between what we did earlier and what we are doing now is quite a much, right? First, we are not self-closing the bean tag. Why? Because we know that we have to call properties. Now you can see that it has a property tag here. So I can say property name. The first property is EID, and I'll supply the value of 102. So the property, now this is self-closing, right? All right, and now second, that we have this property tag right here, and I can supply, let's say, about E name, and I can give it a value, and value can be, let's say, about value is equivalent to because E name is string, all right, and I can say, let's call anything Naveed, might be watching, right? And second thing is also done, and third property is what was it? Employee address, E address, so they should match, right? So E address, E name, and EID should match before we call them, right? Then, so we have all the three properties being set, all right? Email address, and I'll give it value also, all right? It's E address, not email address, so I will say home, sweet home. He lives in sweet home. So now then, everything is set and done. Let me go to index.jsp and start calling. Now then, we already have the instance of bean. We don't have to create the instance of bean again and again. No, we don't have to create that, right? What we can do right here, I can say, and it's going to be very simple. We don't have to do, anything else right here, right? So because you already have that Spring.xml files which is taking care of each and everything right here, right? And we are going to use this in a same pattern, right? So we can simply say factory.getBean, and this time I'm calling for a bean and emp1. That's what the name is, I suppose. ID is emp1, yeah. So we're calling emp1 bean right here, right? And we are typecasting it to employee, maybe employee class. Yeah, we're typecasting it to employee, and let's call this emp, and now let's supply values, right? So now we have to supply as many values as you can to employee class, right? So after you have done factory.getBean, so there's nothing like you can supply values and extract values as well. For example, if I want to extract, I'll say out.print. I can say emp dot let's say about get EID, right? And I can, let's use print ln here so that we check everything, and then I can say, right, EID, and then get E address, or we can say employee name, and get employee address. So this is how we can call even properties without even making an object, just calling the Spring XML file for. Now you can see we're getting Naveed. Okay, let me have it here. Plus I can apply BR here just to check. Okay, and we can apply BR, and we can apply third BR in here. So now we can see the ID is 102 Naveed, and this is home sweet home. Now this is how we basically target, we're calling for objects, or we're calling for the instance of employee class. The moment you call Spring.xml, hey Spring, right, I want to get the bean. Which bean? Employee 1. Where is emp1? It is here, and it does have some properties, and I want to even call those properties, right? And then after calling those properties, what I want to do is display them, and then I display them as well, right? Because getBean is returning an object, complete object, which is of type bean. So, but internally it contains employee. That's why I typecast it back to employee, and then fetch it from employee, get set. These are, and this is why getters and setters are so useful right here. Can we do this emp dot set, right? So we can say set EID. So I can say 1919. So new EID. Now you can see this. We can even use setters and getters. We can even override them. For example, emp dot set e name. So I can say Fahim. All right. So now you can see right? It is replaced. Fahim is coming here, so we can both call getters and setters, and we can have some default values loaded. In case if it is not set, it's going to save the null pointer exception as well. I don't know the moment I start recording and recording lectures for Java, especially, let it be Struts, Spring, or any Java class. I don't know. Dogs start barking very loud, and these dogs are having COVID-19 infection, right? So municipality is not taking care of them. Right? The moment I said dogs, they shut up, right? Okay, fine. So I hope you have understood this part. All right, so let me take a look at the time. So we still have good amount of time, maybe 10 minutes remaining, and I'll try to utilize 10 minutes up to the extent possible under me, and the best extent, right? Now we can say methods injection. How can we, apply method injections, right? We already know that, or we can apply constructor injection as well. We can apply any injection that you want, right? Okay. Okay, triangle is also done, right? And we can have two different things right here now. For example, let's say two different things right now. So we have this circle class right here, right? And let me create a type here also. For example, I will say private string type of the circle or type of the triangle. So let me change it. So the class is triangle, so I'll have to refactor it, rename file to triangle.java, so there's no problem now. So now, and we have type, and we have draw, and we'll say TRIAN, triangle drawn. So now, which type of triangle do you want to draw? Equilateral triangle, and there are many type of triangles. For example, I want to take type as well. Now what I do, I'll create getters and setters here. I will say insert code, not complete Pojo. Let me say getters and setters only are meant to be created. I've created getters, set type, because getters and setters will be created only for type, get type and set type. So I'll say string draw and return triangle drawn. So that's what it is doing. But now let's take a look at the back end. What is happening at the background? If I go and delete this bean right here, okay, now let me call this as TRIANG. So let me call this as try wrong. So let me call triangle and say beans dot, the class name is beans dot triangle. So that is TRIANGLE, triangle, because inside beans the try, okay, it's still spelling mistake. I don't know. At times, why do I do this? TRIANGLE. Is that how we spell triangle? Okay. I need to revise my spellings in the lockdown. It would be better if I revise and learn how to write better spellings. I make a lot of mistakes these days. I don't know why. Maybe lockdown fever just taking us. Okay, let me go ahead. Now bean ID is triangle, and now we know that it has some properties, and it has only one property, and that property name is, if I am not wrong, the property name was type, right? If I go back to employee, okay, not employee but triangle, yeah, the property name is type. Alright, I can go to Spring.xml, I'll say property name is type and give it a value. I'll have to draw a triangle, and that is going to be an equilateral triangle. And how do you spell equilateral? I may have to Google it, right? Who knows? Let me try. ATERAL. Sorry, let me know in the comment section if I spelled it wrong or right. I don't know, but I tried to spell it right. So now the type of triangle that we are going to draw is equilateral. So now this part is done. Now how do you retrieve it? Now what I'll do right here, I'll go to my triangle and I'll say return, right? And before return, I can say get type. Which type of triangle am I drawing? So I'll say get type. For example, I have supplied to type equilateral. So the message is going to be now equilateral triangle drawn. It's as simple as anything. So we should get that equilateral triangle drawn. Who knows? Now let's go back to index.jsp and let's start doing it, right? So I'll just say, right, triangle. Now I have to convert it to triangle, triangle, and here also triangle, triangle, and what is the name? What is triangle? Who knows? God knows. Okay, what is? It is basically ID is triangle here. Go back to your index.jsp and call for triangle. Now, since we have got triangle, now I can say, now what I can do, because I already know the type, so I can say out.print, right? I can say out.print, and for that emp.draw. So I'll call draw. I should get equilateral triangle is drawn. Who knows? If it is not drawn, oh, why do you show me this error? Why do I get this error? I don't know. Triangle emp is equal to converted triangle context.getBean triangle and out.println emp.draw. So let me see this. Circle. Okay, we are it's still asking for circle, but we don't have circle, right? Do we? Where is circle? Right, okay. Maybe we have changed the name of the file from circle to that. So let me clean it for example, because for that I'll have to do cleaning right here, because you know what is happening is still looking for circle. Circle I have renamed to triangle, right? If you remember, all right. So I renamed it to triangle. So let me start again. Why would you look for circle when it does not exist? So that means it's somewhere still there looking for it, right? So you can see still it's looking for circle right here. Can you see this? Yeah, symbol class circle generated. So it's still looking for that. I don't know why. Do we have circle somewhere? Bean ID triangle, beans.triangle, and property is type and say equilateral. So let me basically do, okay, let me create another. So let me say new Java class circle circle. So let me keep it there only, so that maybe, yeah, you can see this circle is now there, and now we have most probably some, yeah, I don't know, deleting the file has created an error. It happens at times, but it will go away if you restart your NetBeans, right? So we should fine. Then now I'll go back to my index.jsp and I'll say out.print emp.draw. So we should get equilateral triangle has been drawn, right? Yeah, equilateral triangle drawn, right? And if you want to override, you can not only ask for properties, you can even update them. For example, I'll say set type, right? I'll say simple. I don't know. I only know equilateral triangle. If you know more triangles than equilateral triangle, let me know in the comment section. If you know, yeah, simple triangle drawn, right? So you can override it. It's not like that it is hard and fast rule that properties are there. We're asking now what we have seen a very nice way without creating an object, right? We are typecasting and we are setting up some properties which we can set in Spring.xml, right? We can do many different things. You don't know, right? Only when you understand will you be able to develop some nice softwares and some complex software solutions using Spring. Spring is the world's #1 framework. I repeat, rated as world's #1 framework for web developers, and Spring is highest paid in the world. I keep on repeating this. I don't know if it's going down your throat or not, but if it's not going down your throat, it should go down your throat as soon as possible. Let me take a look at the timings. So timings, okay, now I am not going to apply too much of pressure because you are very much bored and you are very much, you can say, lethargic these days, sitting back home amid 2019 COVID lockdown. Right, but I'm going to slowly and steadily increase the speed because I want you guys to be in sync with me. Unless you're not in sync with me, right? So if I move and start making software and still solving problem, or what was the name? No, it should not happen. All right, so we'll steadily start, we'll slowly start, and then gradually increase the speed, right? And I'm going to give you ample amount of time so that you get settled in, right? And we should not even try and waste time. Even if we get 1 hour of lecture and 2 hours of practice, that means amid 2019 lockdown, we're still trying to utilize 3 hours despite of watching TV and bothering our sisters, siblings, maybe parents as well, right? So do study very hard and follow your instructors and be in sync with me. Bye bye. Take care. See you tomorrow.